Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Agatha got exactly what she asked for. Micromanagers are the worst. If your employees do their jobs well, then get out of their way and let them do their jobs. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. How I managed my first micromanager. Back in 2010, I was working in a training management area within a government department. The job was fairly easy for me. When my original supervisor went on extended leave, so I got a new supervisor that we'll call Agatha. Almost immediately, Agatha started to micromanage me, even though she didn't really know my job that well, or even half of what my role entailed. Now, I'll say that I didn't particularly like Agatha as a person, but I tried to get along with her. Even when her management style started to show. In hindsight, I should have worked some internal politics to be removed from the area. But hey, no one said I was smart at 19. The section started to have some underlying tension until one day she called me into a meeting and, long convo cut short, said the magic words, "You need to do what I tell you to do and not what you think you need to do." She even followed it up by emailing me words to the same effect. Now, I did two things on the heels of that meeting. Firstly, I printed out the email to keep in my bag, drawer, pocket, and on my wall. Secondly, I started to do what she said and only what she said. At first, she would just tell me the jobs that needed completing, but she only got worse when she noticed the work wasn't getting done and started to tell me how to do things. Again, I complied and only did exactly what she told me and how she told me to do it. If she missed a step in her instructions, I would either skip it if I could move on or ask her to explain again as I couldn't figure it out. I was a damn good employee. I even went out of my way to start asking her what I should be doing and how after every task. If she wasn't in the area, which was very common, I would just wait for her to come back. If she wanted to micromanage me, I would make her work for it. She was getting nothing done. We were getting further and further behind. This went on for about a month. The reputation of our section was tanking internally and externally. Enter Michelle, Agatha's boss. She noticed all my questions and the general drop in productivity, morale, and reputation. She pulled me aside and asked me what was happening, considering I'm normally so competent and efficient and don't ask many questions about how to do the work. Small aside, Michelle was a fantastic boss and generally preferred a more hands-off approach when she could. She clearly was giving Agatha enough rope to either make a ladder or something else. Okay, back to the story. I explained to Michelle how Agatha was managing me, and I was just trying to help her management style by leaning into it. I also showed her Agatha's email. At this point, I estimated I could get everything caught up in about a week without working any extended hours if things changed. Michelle, being a good boss, simply asked what it would take for me to go back to working the way I always have. I only asked to not be managed by Agatha anymore. I could have been much more insidious with my request, but I only wanted to be left alone to do my work. To my surprise, it worked. I immediately started reporting directly to Michelle. I got the work caught up in 3 days, surpassing even my own expectations. As for Agatha, she started to have her work examined a lot more closely, including her overall output, since I found out later she was trying to blame me for her low work output. It turned out that I was, in fact, the solution. Michelle ended up sharing Agatha's workload between the two of us, and we didn't really notice much difference. Agatha, however, did notice a difference as she was shuffled into another area of the department, one with a lot less responsibility and a whole hell of a lot less promotion opportunity. I ran into Agatha again after I moved around the country a few times. I ended up back in the same office, but a different section. Agatha was still in the same crappy position, same level too. Her personal reputation was so bad that only a handful of people would actually work with her. It felt good to know how stuck she was, presumably still is. And our second story. What are they going to do? Fire me? I was shopping at Target, mind you. I was wearing a blue shirt and sweatpants. Nothing close to the red and khaki that we all know. It was slow with very few people. A total Karen comes around the corner with a very rude and loud, "Excuse me." I ignore her since there's no reason why I would need to acknowledge her. She comes closer to me while shoving my cart down the aisle and says, "I need you to grab that box for me now." I just laugh at her and say, "No." I'm short, 4'11", but would try to help a stranger reach the highest shelves item if they ask kindly, but this lady was just too rude to engage. Anyway, she says, "You're just standing there going back and forth in the aisles pretending like you're busy." I told her, and at this point I'm thoroughly amused by her absurd and rude demeanor, "Duh, I gotta do all my shopping while I'm here. I'm not gonna go home without the stuff I need." And of course she proceeds to say, "Listen, young lady, you're not gonna get away with speaking to me like that." The young lady was the most amusing because it was absolutely an on-brand condescending thing to say. So I told her, if you can find my manager, you should tell them that. I bet she won't have a problem with me shopping right now. So she storms off like I had hoped at this point. I decided that it was time to find out if she found my manager. She found a manager and I walked near them. She points at me and tells the person, "That's her. She was disrespectful and refused to help me so she can shop." I had to give it all I had not to bust out laughing. The manager said, "Ma'am, she's a customer here as well. She doesn't work here." So instead of admitting to being a jackwagon, she asked, "Well then, why did you try to tell me to get your manager?" I simply and calmly said, "The offer still stands. Go out and find my manager and tell them everything." Megan, manager's name tag, isn't my manager. I was proud of myself for this one. I get passive-aggressive and sometimes rude when people are like this, and I end up regretting it later and wishing that I had more tact. My calmness in the situation pissed her off the most, I believe. It got me thinking a few days afterwards as well. I live in a touristy destination, and while most people are delightful, there's a small population of out-of-touch people who think that everyone is there to serve them. But I suppose that that's the case everywhere. But these people were particularly on my mind at this moment. I was shopping at the local grocery outlet for some batteries, Quick Trip. I'm browsing batteries and looking at my options as this one lady passed 3 employees to bark an order at me over not being able to find a ladle. Now, grocery outlet is one of those stores that may or may not have odds and ends like ladles, and that's just the nature of it, but I digress. I think the barking triggered me, so I said, probably a little too rudely, "What makes you think I work here?" She tried to pretend like she didn't just bark something at me and started to walk away, so I said, "No, I want to know what about me made you think that shopping is the last possible reason I could be here right now." She walked away sheepishly. I get a phone call from my partner a few minutes later while I was waiting in checkout and tell him what had just happened, as she and her family are in line behind me. While talking on the phone, I had said, "These people have the audacity to bark at people, and they literally think that any warm body is there to serve them. We need to promote employees to be rude back, because it's not like these people would be nice anyways, since they just jump into barking orders without a please, a thank you, or hello." And then I said my phone goodbye and hung up to move to the cashier. I look at the family and tell the mom, "If you still can't find a ladle, they're right over there," points to aisle. It's one of literally 2 grocery stores in the county, so I've spent many days shopping the whole store and familiarized with the setup. She just shrugs it off, and her husband sheepishly laughed it off and said, "Oh, it's okay, it's not that important, no worries." I said, "Really? It almost seemed like life or death the way y'all asked." Again, maybe I was out of line, but there's no reason why anyone should approach anybody, especially employees, like that. A third time I was shopping at Ulta and noticed a lady following me down each aisle. She finally approached me and said, "Excuse me, but I need help finding insert item here." I told her, "I don't work here, but I'm happy to help find it together." And she said, "Sure, maybe until I run into someone that works here." And we proceeded to browse a couple of aisles and had a lovely brief discussion about our favorite skincare items. So it's not being asked for help or thinking that I work there, but how it's asked. Some people think that they can talk down to anybody and they can use someone's employment as leverage to get away with speaking to people like that. I support, as someone in the service industry as well, a movement to not necessarily be rude to customers, but to mirror their behavior. Take away their power. I'm not even bothered if someone is short with me or even not cordial. but don't be straight up rude. And our last story. Don't mess with HR. Long time ago, I worked for a public agency. One day, they hired someone out of private industry at the vice president level. She immediately begins hiring all her cronies and butt kissers from her old job at very nice salaries for jobs that didn't previously exist. That's the sort of corruption we're used to in North Carolina, so no biggie so far. But she runs out of slots she can just create with a little paperwork, so she starts to bully people in order to get them to quit so she can fill their jobs with her friends. One job was that of executive assistant, and she was pretty harsh on the woman who had that job. I witnessed some of this and told the assistant to take it to HR, which she did. And HR just told her to document everything. So she did, and one day the VP caught her recording a yell fest on her phone. The VP wanted to know what was up, so the exec assistant told her that HR wanted documentation and that I had told her how to record conversations on a cell phone, which was legal, by the way, I checked. So she yells at the exec assistant, yells at me, and then gets on the phone to HR, yelling at them that they were a bunch of incompetent fools and that she wanted to know what kind of Mickey Mouse outfit she was working for if she couldn't fire whoever the F she wanted to fire. Now we all know there are 3 truths in life. No tugging on Superman's cape, no land wars in Asia, don't piss off HR. Sure enough, HR initiates an investigation that took 300 hours of interviews with everyone in the department and a board of inquiry headed up by a senior VP. She was called to the senior VP's office at 4:30 in the afternoon, and when we came to work at 8 the next morning, her office was cleared out. Most of the cronies she hired were gone within a couple of months. No one wanted to work with them, so with no projects on their docket, they knew the writing was on the wall. When the last of the cronies left, her job was eliminated and her staff transferred elsewhere. It was like the evil VP and her mob never existed. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.